Vielen Dank und grüß Gott München. Ich bin sehr froh, wieder hier zu sein. And my task is very simple. I have 5 to 7 minutes, and in these 5 to 7 minutes, I have to tell you what matters truly for competitiveness. As you know, I mean, we have had the 2 twin reports, the Letta reports and the Draghi reports, and the Commission, by the end of this month, will issue something called Competitiveness Compass. Competitiveness Compass is, as the name says, something supposed to give the compass on what we shall do for increasing European competitiveness. Now, according to the Draghi report, there are 3 issues that we need to look at. One is closing the innovation gap. The other is sustainability and competitiveness. And the third is defense and security. Given the little time I have been given, I will only focus on the first one, which is closing the innovation gap. Now, if you are not here and you would read it on a book, if you have to close a gap, is very simple. You go by first principle and you say what innovation, and innovation is produced by a mixture of labor, the intelligence that labor has, and of course money, so labor and capital. So you would be excused to go very simple and to say, okay, if you want to close the innovation gap, you need to have, first of all, an adequate number of workers, and we'll get to that in a moment. You need to have workers who are properly skilled, so they need to have skills, so the productivity of the workers need to be good. For productivity of the workers is, of course, not only how smart they are, what are their skills, but also how much capital has been put. Do they have last generation computer, or do they have the old Commodore 64? So this is what makes the difference in that. And then finally, there is what we, the economists, called with a bit of a cryptic name, the total factor productivity, which is essentially the economic environment, essentially is the legal environment, the economic environment, the place where you put together the labor, the skills, and the capital. And my pitch today is very simple, is that if you want to solve these 3 issues, so the issue of labor, having adequate number of people, the issue of skills, making sure people are well skilled, and the issue of capital, the best way to do it is to leverage on the single market. Basically, my pitch is that nationalism here will not work. Today is a special day, the 17th of January. 30 years ago, 17th of January 1995, was the last public speech of François Mitterrand at the European Parliament. And in that public speech, he made very clear that the nationalism would bring, at the end of the day, to war, or would bring, in any case, to fragmentation. What comes very clear out of... The microphone went, I don't know why. Is it, sorry?
No, it works.
Okay, so one thing that comes out very clear from the Letta and Draghi report is that when you have fragmentation in Europe, when the market in Europe are fragmented, then inevitably you go for another solution. All of us this morning had a coffee. None of us paid with a European credit card because the European credit card does not exist. There is no European credit card. We all paid with an American credit card. This morning we had a coffee and someone in Wisconsin got a little bit of the percentage of the coffee that we spent. This is a very clear example of how fragmentation of the European markets in a very competitive world allows others to develop. So the point I want to make is the point on we need European unity to solve at least these 3 challenges and probably others. On labor, it's very clear. You would say, well, we have free circulation of labor, so that's easy. We have solved it 30 years ago with the treaty, and so on and on. In reality, the situation is a little bit complicated. Everybody of you who has tried to move from one to the other countries know there are issues of pension portability, social security protection, and so on and on. There are a number of areas where we clearly can do better, and there are a number of areas where solutions are on the table. Solutions are in front of the Council and the European Parliament, and we need to move. Skills. As you know, one of the first initiative of the von der Leyen II Commission will be Competitiveness Compass, as I just said. The second will probably be the Clean Industrial Deal. And the third one will be the union of skills. What is the union of skills? The idea is not particularly different from, for example, the banking union. Is leveraging the single market to make sure that the skills of the European citizens can be used all across the single market and can be therefore moved where they are needed. Why? Because we are in a transformation period. We are transforming, we are the green transformation, the digital transformation. Transformation means very simply that in some places there will be job creation and in other places there will be job destruction. And that's exactly what we need to do to be able to compensate the job creation, or if you want, the demand for labor that will emerge in some sector, with the destruction of the labor and the job that will be in other sectors. And I believe this is truly the crucial point. And on capital, I don't need to make the pitch. Capital Markets Union has been on the table for a while. We need to advance. We need member states to advance on that and to make the pitch. Bottom line of all of that, the bottom line of all of that is, if you look at the numbers are very clear. In Europe, we have every year from now till 2050, a bit more than 1 million people that pass from the status of workers to the status of pensioner, from workers to pensioner. For each 3 people that leave the labor market, only 1 enters. That is what demography is. Demography is such that 3 people leave and 1 enter. In this moment in Europe, the most numerous cohort is the 50 plus, which is quite singular. In 20 years will be the 70 plus. This is the problem we need to grab with. We can have the young who are very skillful, and therefore, let's say 1 young produces like 2 old, people of my generation, very good, but then will not be enough. We need to get to terms with the fact that we need more people in the labor market, and that means we need to get to terms with the fact that we need to have a good migration policy. The Commission issued the Migration Act a couple of years ago, less, 15 months ago. We need to have planned migration. We need to leverage the single market. We are the perfect place for the migrants. If you are a migrant, let's say from the Far East, you choose the country. You have the choice to come to work in Europe, where your kids can go to university and you can have some social security, some help in the hospital if you fall ill, or go in other places where your kids to the university would cost an impossible amount to pay, or if you break a leg, it would be $70,000. You are probably likely to choose us, as many of them. So we need to leverage on that, and we need to be able to close our labor gap, our innovation gap, our productivity gap. So I stop here. I think I was in the timing. Over to you.
Mario, and thank you for teeing us off. I think we're all eagerly awaiting the launch of the Competitiveness Compass. Actually, had it been launched as planned, we would have actually been talking about it this very session on the 15th. So we wish the Commission President well in the speedy recovery fully. And with that, I think we're still grappling, right, with competitiveness and technology at the very core of this. And when we set up this panel, you might wonder, because a bit of a tension between a regulator who talks about formally reforms and now what's in the European Commission program. And then we have one of the fiercest, I think, tech leaders in Europe, Claudia, heads innovation, competitiveness, and technology at Deutsche Telekom. So what's your take on Europe's state on competitiveness? How are we innovating our way out of that misery fast? And how does it all come together from your perspective before we see a bit of a tension between the two?
I think speed is the name of the game. It allows me to put a bit of spice into the soup and comment on what I think how we fundamentally need to change the way how we are doing things. And I have 3 things. Number 1, we need to become a continent of getting things done, of pragmatism, and stop either demonizing or mystifying technology such as AI. It's neither the end of mankind nor does it solve any problem we are having. Instead, each of us, each company, small or big, needs to apply it, do it at scale. And I can tell you, without AI, we would be toast. We wouldn't be, as Deutsche Telekom, we wouldn't be able to protect ourselves against 50,000 attacks per minute on our network.
Oh, wow.
And it also helps to address the productivity as well as the labor shortage point. There are not enough fiber planners in the entire Europe to help us build 2.5 million fiber lines. And just to give you a sense of speed, it makes that so much faster. For example, once we have done all the fiber lines, they are there, our technicians need to do the house connection. They do this 1,000 times per day. In the old processes, it took per connection 225 seconds. And most of the work is copy-paste. Copy-paste, copy-paste. Guess what? The technicians don't like that. But supporting that with Gen AI reduces 225 seconds to 9 seconds. And that is AI people like, and people are not concerned about. So it makes us faster. It helps us to save lives. And it even fosters creativity. And that's actually what I believe you really need to get things done. So pragmatism in getting things done. Second, and now I'm addressing regulation, but also business behavior. Guys, in Europe, we have come to inventing the airbag, specifying the airbag, regulating the airbag, before the car gets invented. And my point on regulation, why is that? Because very often when we think about new technology, we are thinking, oh, what, even when it's very unclear, what could eventually go wrong? And then we micromanage and detail everything, and by the time others have invented the car while we are specifying the airbag. And I can give you now a number of irre Beispiele, a few examples, and each of you know the one. I think the original discussion about the AI Act was like that, but then it took a better term. Or in Germany, we had something like that until more recently. Most recently, it's now being changed. In Germany, we actually had to keep employment contracts in paper for everyone. And you know what the argument was? The same like what I described. The argument was, yeah, there are companies in meat production who have taken advantage and exploited poor people from Eastern Europe, yes. But because of that, now also the PhD in software engineering, all people in smaller companies in telecom, etc., had to do this. Now it's going to change. I think we need to stop applying angst culture cast in paragraphs to all innovation. That would be my plea. By the way, there's also an accountability in businesses. I mean, people nowadays buy cars because of the board computer and not because of the perfect stitching of the leather seats. And this is not at all the task of the politicians to figure out, yeah? Because it's innovation in companies. And now I come to my last point on the how. How? Innovation happens in vibrant ecosystems, and we discussed it. A vibrant ecosystem consists of startups, universities, but also leading companies. Leading companies. 15 years ago, people in telecom were embarrassed to say they work for Deutsche Telekom. Today they are proud. By now, Deutsche Telekom is the only company in Europe left, which is among the 10 most valuable brands in the world. We are a leading company. We work together with over 1,000 startups. So why I'm saying that, not to say we are so great, by the way we are, but come to us. But no, the thing is, we need to have leaders, startups, universities. And I think regulatory regime needs to move away from leaders preventing from happening. You need to allow consolidation. Across countries, within a country, you need to create a more investment-friendly regulatory regime, I would actually say, to actually allow leaders to happen. Because we need all. We need the vibrant ecosystem, we need the leaders, and we should stop preventing leadership from happening, at least, and then allow innovation in the entrepreneurial spirit. So these would be my 3 things I have on competition and innovation.
Wonderful, beautiful, and strongly spoken, as to be expected, always, Claudia. I think some of these themes we've heard for years, no? As like behind fragmentation, regulation, not an investment-friendly environment. Actually, we did a recent piece, like 2 percentage point return on capital deployed. Actually, the gap between the US is like every rational investor would actually like place their bets elsewhere, condition being equal. They're not even with the regulation around it. Question is, now the tables have turned a little bit.
Yes.
Like the urgency is slightly higher, temperature's up, no anything. I mean, competitiveness, people woke up to it fully. Now new commission, inauguration next week, like full force deregulation coming. from our friends in the US. And sometimes like it needs something like this that can also be an accelerant to us. No? It's like, while we agree on all of these issues, fragmentation, scale, anything technology, like how are we using that disrupt? I would love to hear that from both of you. Like, how are we going to use that disrupt to actually say, what's different this time, new people in chairs here and there, what are we going to do differently, and what should we be doing differently before we already have to wrap? So those two, and then you start.
Yes, please.
Well, obviously, the European Union is the most open economy of the world, right? We are 7% of the world GDP, and we are about 23% of the world trade. So we are by far and large the most open economy of the world. So it's not surprising that the international environment impacts on us. Also, I think the European Union has demonstrated in the last few years to be able to do one thing that not many are able to do, which is to put values before money. Our reaction to the Russian invasion in Ukraine was a clear demonstration of values before money. It costed us lots of money, but it was clear that we needed to uphold the values. Now there is a new era, as it's written here, a new environment coming up. I think what we'll need to do in this new environment is, of course, to be able to keep the openness of our economy, which has made our economy strong, but also to realize that a strong open economy comes from the fact that you have a strong single market. And I think the work on the single market, the work on enforcing single market, the work on avoiding internal market fragmentation is fundamental. And if I can give a bit of spice in the soup back to my friend Claudia, many of the legislation is there for avoiding fragmentation. A few years ago, when I was director for retail banking, I received a letter from a concerned mother because her daughter was studying in Germany, and she tried to have a subscription with Deutsche Telekom, and Deutsche Telekom accepted only BDE IBAN. And there is a regulation that says this cannot be the case. You must accept every IBAN. Obviously, is a regulation which is there, which would love not to be there if you would play ball.
Yes, by the way, you said I agree, and I think what you say on fragmentation is super relevant. I would add, in addition to de facto standards. And there was a time, we think on 2G and GSMA, when Europe was capable of setting de facto standards. And a single market is a super important thing. I would actually agree on that one. But again, here it's about speed to doing something and get faster to killing fragmentation. Because fragmentation is in the way of speed to scale, obviously.
Fragmentation is in the way even of equity. It's certainly in the way of Europe growing, because in the moment there is fragmentation, it means European products are under-competitive, and therefore you buy world products. The credit card is the most obvious example, but there are as many as you want every moment in the day. And then, because of that, is in the way even to equity, even in the way to inclusion, because you don't have enough job creation exactly because you're not competitive.
Having to wrap this, I would like to leave you with 3 questions and also a bit of food for thought for the audience. And like, instead of lunch, there was lots of soup and spices in the soup, so I hope it was worth your while. So given this new era and what we actually need to do now collectively between the regulators and the leaders in Europe, in particular in technology, how we get our act together, what's your one commitment, what's your one ambition, and what will be your one wish, like we have significantly advanced on by the time on we speak next year in the spirit of speed? Commitment, aspiration, and wish.
So my commitment is to make sure that we, through our role, drive AI for ourselves, for our customers, and for the startup community. I believe we have so many multiple crises around us, and it's time to create a mantra for human-centered technology at scale. And human-centered technology at scale is technology that is good for people and solves the problems of people. And that's my commitment in my role, that we contribute to that. And my wish would be that we move away from Kafka micromanagement wherever that happens. Whether it's companies who get it wrong or regulation, that would be my wish. Let's actually unleash the dynamic of entrepreneurial people. And by the way, it starts with all of you. Ask yourself, I'm also a mom, 14 and 17-year-old, how much time you spend being passionate, engaged, curious, looking for things, yeah? Actually inspiring people to do that. So my plea would be inspire entrepreneurialism, human-centered technology to happen. And my last point is, I think on social media we have a bit of an Arab Spring in Europe. I hope we have gotten the point, yeah, that fakeness and shit and everything is destroying our democracy. So I believe we have actually an avenue to create human-centered technology, and that will attract the talent. I can see that, because when I talk about my vision about how we want to develop with software engineers human-centered technology, I can tell you, I can get people from around the world. And we need to spread that. You need to see the fire and the passion in the eyes, so you have a commitment that in my eyes it doesn't stop. And I would want to see that also in your eyes.
You're infectious, Claudia. That for sure will travel. So try follow that.
Very good.
Mario.
The commitment definitely the same as Claudia. Artificial intelligence for the people, and not people for artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence which is well rolled out in the workplace. Artificial intelligence that does not get biased, that does not have inherent prejudices, and so on. On the wish, I have it possibly even bigger than the one of Claudia. My wish is that politicians get real on what we need. And frankly, the example I gave you on migration, which if you take cold and abstract reasonment, there is no other possibility to do that, to solve our huge demographic problem, to solve the problem that in 20 years, the most numerous cohort will be 70 plus. We need migration to solve that. I think this is my biggest wish, that politicians get real, they get to a true debate, they don't hide behind slogans or easy solutions. And if that happens, I think next year or in 2 years or in 3 years, Europe will be a much better place. Thank you.
Well, we have no time next year, so we're moving fast. We'll have this discussion again next year and accelerate this. Thank you all for spending lunch with us.
Already over. Thank you. And the soup.